Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City, here is Steve Malzberg.
That we would select 83 custodians who were the ones most likely to be involved, and that we would search.
Which are those the same 83 that a quarter of them's hard drives crashed?
Well, it's not clear a quarter. There's at this point nobody knows what that answer is. But
also, we could have more that have crashed.
We could have more. We could have less. I don't know until we find out.
Does that just not boggle the mind that of a small number, one about a quarter, and we can argue back and forth a quarter, not a quarter. I'm not a mathematician, neither are you, but that there may be others in that subset that deals with the areas we're asking for?
Yes, and that's a perfect example as to why it would be very helpful had we been able to complete the investigation of what happened to the custodians. We could tell you.
All right, folks, welcome back. That was yesterday, and that was a member of the House Oversight Committee and the House Government Reform Committee, Doug Collins, a Republican from Georgia, with the IRS Commissioner. Welcome, Congressman.
It's always good to be with you, Steve.
I got to tell you, I watched this man, having watched him in the previous hearings and watching him yesterday, and to me, I don't know, he's the face of arrogance.
That face is even more pronounced when you're up close to it, and is really what it is, and it's sad because this, as I told him yesterday, also in that same hearing, that what he has lost is the trust of the American people, both the Republicans and Democrats. And I said, for you to continue to come up here and be this way it's just arrogance. It is just an extreme arrogance this commissioner has.
All right, now first of all, the revelation yesterday, and I'm so mixed up with these terms of trashed and shredded and recycled and whatever, but the bottom line, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that now it turns out there could have been, there may be some kind of backup to those emails, those lost Lois Lerner emails, which he had previously testified, whether it was to your committee or another, that there was no such thing. He says he found out, I don't know, several days ago or whatever, that there may be such a thing. If that's the case, isn't it incumbent upon him, after he testifies that it doesn't exist and then he finds out subsequently that it does exist, is it not incumbent upon him, and you tell me if it's legally incumbent upon him, to notify the committee to whom he testified to the contrary?
Well, I think the interesting thing is whether the legal justification. What is bad is when he comes in the spring and his first testimony before us makes no mention of the fact that Lerner's hard drive is scratched, shredded,
right,
whatever.
Because you didn't ask him, he said. Right.
Yeah, well, which is a load of bull. We call that chicken play, crap up in our part of the world. But we did ask him, and we went through this process. And then he comes back, and on June 13th said, "Oh well, there may be." And now this is people ask me all the time, Steve. They say, "Aren't y'all? What are y'all? Why are y'all still beating on this?" I tell them because every time we have a hearing, every time something's asked, every time a subpoena is issued, something new comes out. And this is just ridiculous. It is the beyond the pale of probability at this point. Well,
what could be done? Because you know and I know that nothing is going to happen from this Justice Department investigation. And he also, didn't he say yesterday that as long as the who oversees his department that's investigating this, we
got the TIG, the Treasury Inspector General.
Inspector General, IG, right? That as long, well, he's not going to. He doesn't feel the need to tell you anything that he finds out, and he isn't going to do any investigating of his own department because the IG is doing it.
Well, and that's again another load. This man ought to clean out chicken houses in North Florida because as much stuff as he shreds and throws around, because he's never consistent. He is not. The only thing he's consistent at is saying, "I don't know who was in the room. I don't remember who was telling me this. I don't know. I don't remember who told me that. I don't remember if I had a meeting about that." And what is bad about this is, Steve, to the American public, what he is sitting there doing to the American public is saying, "You are not worth me answering these questions for," and the American people are the ones that are misserved here. Right, that is the only problem.
So what could the Congress do? What could the House do? Don't you guys control the purse strings? Can't you guys going forward, I don't want to say punish, but and I've heard calls for this, radically reconstruct the IRS?
Well, yeah, well, we can, and I think that's one of the areas in the appropriations package, financial services appropriation package, just a little over a week ago. IRS IRS was severely cut and back in a lot of ways. Almost upwards of closer to under $1 billion that was just cut out of their department. They've been being cut over the last couple of cycles. We can continue to do that, but also the one thing that I think, just to send out just sort of the shot, is the commissioner can keep coming and he can keep changing his story. He can keep, but at a certain point in time, he's got, as the old saying goes, he's told enough stories that he's got to remember which story he's told.
Well, okay. What about holding him in contempt or some kind of penalty for this kind of obfuscation?
Well, the contempt part, he's the one that actually comes. So I mean, he'll come and testify. The problem is, though, is if we can actually show that he had knowledge of stuff that he is testifying on, and that's perjury. Right. And now that's a whole different animal at that point. But right now, like I said, he is the face of an administration that is frankly just defiant to the American public because they believe what they do is right.
So you have hopes that you will see Lois Lerner's quote-unquote heretofore claim to be missing emails.
Look, we never know what the IRS is going to tell us next. Now we see here that there might be a possibility. Then even this past week in the Ways and Means Committee with the deputy commissioner, we were told that there was really nothing that wrong with Lois Lerner's hard drive. It had a scratch on it and could have been recovered. So again, it's starting to build up. And that's the purpose of oversight. That's the purpose of Congress's oversight responsibilities, is to stay at something until you get the final answer. And at this point, we're nowhere close to a final answer. But what we are seeing is I believe, cracks in the armor, so to speak, of the story that has been spun for almost 2 years.
And of course, it's not just Lois Lerner. I mean, if it was one, you could almost say, nah, I don't believe it. But okay, it's 6, 7 others all involved in this same deal. And the emails you have seen, or we all have seen also, her communicating with her former, I think, FEC person, or wanting to know if people could see their communications, and and she said act as if they can, and she said great. I mean, it just stinks of a total cover-up.
Does not what you just said right there is amazing too. She actually had to ask.
Yeah, she didn't know.
And the other person had to say, tell a high-ranking government official had to tell her, you might ought to act as if everybody can. That's one of the first rules of public life.
Yeah, like don't talk on an open. Don't talk if you're hooked up to a microphone. It's always open.
Exactly. All mics are open and all questions are live.
Yeah, maybe John Kerry should have learned that too the other day.
Well, that's beyond hope.
All right. Let me ask you a question here about the primary that we had the other day. The finish of it. Jack Kingston, your colleague, losing to David Perdue, very close, but nonetheless, it'll be Perdue against Michelle Nunn. A lot of people saying that if the Democrats want to hold on to the Senate, this is one they have to win. What do you make of the decision by the Republican voters in your state?
Well, look, David Perdue is going to be a strong standard bearer for the Republican Party. I think he is going to put forth the conservative values that reflect Georgia, and he's going up against an untested liberal in Georgia. And I don't care what the folks inside the Beltway are saying about, how Georgia's changing and how purple it can be. Here's the bottom line. Michelle Nunn is pro-choice. Michelle Nunn is pro-Obamacare. Michelle Nunn is for gun control. And Michelle Nunn supports this president. In Georgia, that is not good.
I was going to say, doesn't sound like Georgia to me.
No, it's not. And David Perdue is going to be our standard bearer. We're behind David. I'm behind David, taking that message. We're going to help him in the 9th District and all over the state, carrying those 4 lines. All you need to know about Michelle Nunn, she's her dad, fine fella. He's been retired for a while. We're talking about a true liberal who wants to come up here and continue the policies of a failed administration.
Got one more for you, Speak. You mentioned Obamacare, and yesterday we found out that the GAO did undercover work, and they fraudulently applied for coverage and subsidies, and 9 out of 10 times, 11 out of 12 times, they were accepted.
Yep. It's almost like walking into a casino and being shot gambling's taking place. I mean, this is what we was concerned about from day one. There's been no checks on this, and this is just the problem that we're seeing here. What it was intended to do, it's never done, and I think the courts are now catching up to this. I'm anxious to see what the Supreme Court will do once it gets to them on the subsidy issue, on the federal subsidies, because, again, this goes back to plain letter of law. You can't reinterpret law just because you don't like it.
Well, of course, the president has done that, and I wish John Boehner, when he does file his suit, would include so much more than just the Affordable Care Act, waivers and changes of dates, to include the ICE enforcement, welfare reform enforcement provisions there. You just can't selectively do that, but this president thinks he can.
Well, yeah, it does, and I think our Rules Committee is going to be reporting that out today. We're looking forward to having that on the floor. Now, this is the fight worth having. I've talked about this for almost 2.5, 3 years. Article 1, responsibility of Congress, is built into the Constitution, just like the articles for the executive branch and the judicial branch. That's what the founders asked for. We've got to follow up to that.
Congressman, pleasure talking.
We've got to follow up to that.
Congressman, pleasure talking to you, sir. Thank you.
Steve's always good. Take care.
Take care, Congressman Doug Collins. But here I am. Imagine I'm calling a white member of the administration arrogant. So that must mean I don't like whites? Because, if you call Barack Obama arrogant, that's a code word. So, I'm trying to keep up, that's all. But anyway, how could you look at this man and think anything? How could you look at this man and think anything else but total dissonance? Look what's going on. This is the IRS. My goodness. And I know it's been pushed aside, pushed to the back pages, but with people like Congressman Collins and others, this will get done. I have confidence this will get done. On the Steve Malzberg Show, up next, Gimme 5.